Left alone at a blind date, she discovered an amazing truth when a neighboring billionaire said. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the quaint café, but all Sarah felt was the bitter taste of disappointment on her tongue. She sat alone at a small table, the minutes slipping by like grains of sand in an hourglass. Natalie and Jake had assured her that this blind date would be different. Yet, like so many dreams she had nurtured in her 38 years, it had crumbled swiftly. The ache in her chest echoed the weight of her unnoticed talent as a graphic designer, her heart yearning for acknowledgement in a town that seemed never to have space for her aspirations. She couldn't shake the feeling of being invisible, a mere shadow lurking in the vibrant hues of Maplewood. Rising half-heartedly from her seat, she decided to escape the stares of sympathetic patrons and retreat to Maplewood Park, surrounded by a canopy of gold and crimson leaves. In the whisper of autumn, thoughts consumed her. Was she doomed to a life of unremarkable design work? Did every individual in Maplewood know her name only as the girl who never made it? The park felt suffocatingly small now, a vivid reminder of her fading dreams. As she meandered along the path, she overheard a heated conversation nearby. Tom, the town's billionaire entrepreneur, stood face to face with a concerned community leader. Their voices were sharp, full of tension. "Your project is tearing us apart," the leader shouted, stressing every syllable. Intrigued, Sarah slowed, her artist's heart alarming her. How could someone in his position disregard the feelings of those below him? A rogue emotion surged defiance. Caught off guard when Tom glanced her way, surprise shattered Sarah's reverie. He approached, curiosity shining in his eyes. "What do you think?" he asked, genuinely intrigued. A wave of embarrassment washed over her. Who was she to share her opinion? Yet empowered by a surge of indignation, she began to speak. "Your project isn't just about profits, it's about people. You're creating a divide. Have you even considered what you're sacrificing?" As the words spilled from her lips, she felt a weight lift. Tom listened intently, a flicker of admiration crossing his face. They settled onto a park bench as she challenged him more, their dialogue weaving through aspirations and flaws like an intricate tapestry. She learned of his upbringing, the humble roots mirroring her own, but guilt shadowed his wealth, an internal war simmering just beneath his polished exterior. Was he simply a villain in her narrative, or was it more complicated than that? But the deeper they plunged into conversation, the more conflicted her heart became. Could she truly forgive him for the choices that hurt her community? Was justice merely a matter of principles, or could it become blurred by the power of connection? Tom's sincerity starved her doubts, yet she felt a rising tide of uncertainty clawing at her resolve. Would she sacrifice her beliefs for the chance of something more with him? Before they could unearth the real truth, a sudden commotion erupted in the park, breaking the palpable tension. A shout rang out, pulling her focus away from Tom. Breathless, she looked into his eyes, the unresolved connection hanging in the air. Could she seize this chance, or had their moment already slipped away? The question loomed heavy, an unfinished symphony begging for resolution as they stood on the precipice of transformation, both personally and for their beloved town. The commotion in the park unraveled like a frayed string, pulling Sarah out of the cocoon of her thoughts. The conversation she had just begun with Tom felt delicate, yet now it was torn apart by the chaos surrounding them. A group of children had spilled their laughter into shouts, chasing a stray dog that had darted through the nearby flower beds, scattering petals in a colorful whirl. Momentarily distracted, she found herself watching Tom as the corners of his mouth lifted slightly, amusement glimmering in his eyes. That warmth, a flicker of genuine emotion, reminded her of the humanity behind the billionaire facade. But amidst the joy of the moment, a storm brewed in her heart. Sarah wrestled with a nagging suspicion: could she truly let go of her righteous indignation to pursue a more personal connection? As the dog turned sharp corners, Sarah's mind plotted out her options. Should she dive into a relationship with a man whose choices had pushed so many into despair? Hadn't her own life been shaped by scruples, professionalism, and her unwavering sense of right? The bitter irony flooded her thoughts. Here she was, grappling with a potential partnership with a man she barely knew, yet felt an undeniable connection to. Forcing a breath, she cast her eyes away from Tom's watchful gaze, grounding herself in the moment. This was still her life, her aspirations, her beliefs. The pain of invisibility was a persistent echo, but today, maybe it could be a catalyst for change. What's the next step for you? She challenged him, shutting down the flutters of hope that rose too easily within. Tom's brow furrowed slightly, engaged by her words. I want to make a difference, but I know I've made mistakes along the way. He hesitated, biting his lip as he searched for the right words. You call it a sacrifice, but I see it as a constant balancing act. I don't want to ignore the people of Maplewood, but I also want progress. As he spoke, a determined resolve ignited within Sarah. They weren't simple adversaries, they were two individuals navigating the complicated labyrinth of ambition and ethics. With each revelation he shared, she began envisioning a different future, not one of blind loyalty, nor one of bitter resentment, but a collaborative one. I can help you, she declared, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. The atmosphere shifted, charged with new energy. If you truly want to understand the community, let me take you through it, show you the art of the people, the heart aligned with your vision. His eyes widened softly, surprise morphing into intrigue as he considered her offer. You? An artist? Yes. She exclaimed, emboldened. My designs have always told stories. If we can connect your vision with the soul of this community, then the sudden shout from the children broke her argument, but an opportunity hung in the air like a promise. A chance to create something meaningful resonated within her, fueling a dormant flame of purpose. As they resumed their discussion, vitality pulsed through her veins. She would no longer be a spectator in her own life, she was gearing up to make her mark. Each idea exchanged felt like a step toward reclaiming her narrative, a skilled architect sculpting a bridge between two worlds. But just as Sarah began to see the outline of unimaginable potential take shape, a figure approached from behind Tom. The air turned electric as a frail woman stepped into view, an urgency etched across her face. The woman's eyes locked on Tom, her voice trembling as she spoke, "You need to come home. There's something you must see." Sarah's heart raced. Whatever awaited them had to be significant. Torn between the opportunity she grasped and the familial pull tugging at Tom, she braced for the unknown, the possibilities fracturing into 1,000 directions. Would his loyalties shift, or would it curtail their newfound alliance before it could even begin? Tom's expression tightened as he turned to face the woman. In that instant, Sarah felt like an intruder in a private moment, watching as Tom's warmth chilled in the wake of uncertainty. The dynamic they had just begun to explore slipped away like sand through her fingers. A rushed sense of disorientation clouded her thoughts, and once again, she faced the dilemma brewing within her. What is going on? Tom asked, his curiosity laced with a raw thread of concern. The woman glanced nervously at Sarah before gesturing for Tom to follow her. I don't know how to explain it, please, just come. As she moved away, Sarah's heart thudded heavily in her chest. The opportunity to sculpt their joint vision had been tangible moments ago, now overshadowed by this urgent call back to family. Tom glanced back, a complex swirl of emotions braided within his furrowed brow. He must have felt it, too, that conflicting pull between duty and desire. Just a moment, he said, then turned fully to Sarah. I'll be right back. Of course, she managed, though inside, her resolve shattered. How could he choose this now, she questioned. The connection they'd started to build felt fragile, the weight of potential hung between them, yet it felt like a dream slipping through her grasp. Sarah stood still, rooted to the spot as Tom followed the woman towards the park's exit. Her mind flooded with momentum, incapable of stalling as thoughts boiled to the surface. She was an artist, a visionary, yet here she was, hesitating at the cusp of her ambitions. With a jolt of determination, she decided to follow them, propelled not just by curiosity but by a fierce desire to not simply allow her path to be dictated by circumstance. What was waiting for Tom back home? Surely whatever it was, it had to connect to the commitment he'd implied moments prior. Perhaps it had the potential to dissolve the walls between them. The autumn air felt sharp against her skin as she quickened her steps. As she caught up, Sarah noted the woman leading Tom, her features now a mask of urgency. What revelations might await? This was a critical juncture, not only for Tom but for Sarah's own journey of discovery. When they reached the entrance of the park, the woman turned to him, her voice now urgent and low. "We can't waste time, you must see this for yourself. It's about the project." "Is it bad?" Tom's voice cracked slightly as he spoke. A fleeting moment of vulnerability surfaced, humanizing him further in Sarah's eyes. She's been affected, Tom." The woman's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You need to face the people you've left behind." Those words pierced through Sarah, igniting a flicker of hope within her. Would this revelation metamorphose the man before her, making him reconsider his choices? More importantly, would it give Sarah the opportunity she coveted, the chance to redefine their dynamic, to align their aspirations? As she stepped closer, the woman caught sight of Sarah, taking a second to assess her presence. But that brief moment of recognition was gone as Tom's focus remained locked on the woman's anxious gaze. "Let us go," he finally said, his voice steady yet laced with an underlying tremor. He turned to leave, clearly steeled for a confrontation. This was her instinctive chance and opportunity not to retreat but to reclaim her voice. She hurried to their side, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. "I can help," she said impulsively. "If this is about people you've left behind, allow me to be there." Tom's eyes narrowed, conflicted yet intrigued. The moment hung in the air, charged with possibilities that could either shatter or strengthen their nascent connection. "Sarah, this is not your fight," he said, cautious. And yet it felt like the most personal fight she could ever face. "Maybe it is," she reckoned, fierce determination lacing her words. What she could lose paled in comparison to what she could gain. But as they began to move forward, uncertainty still loomed heavier than the leaves that clung desperately to their branches. Would the abyss they were about to venture into pull Tom back into his past or propel both of them toward an unimaginable future? The chill of the evening air heightened Sarah's senses as she trailed Tom and the woman, every heartbeat reverberating with a mix of anxiety and determination. The city around them blurred into a backdrop, distantly aware yet fleeting, a canvas without purpose, unlike the focused energy that propelled her forward. Each footfall felt like a step into an uncharted territory where ambiguity reigned supreme. What would she uncover on this journey? The whispers of her own ambition echoed. This could be her moment, a turning point not just for Tom, but also for herself. With each stride, she conjured mental blueprints of images she wished to capture, moments that spoke of connection, hope, and renewal. But would the vulnerability of confronting Tom's past overshadow her artistic drive? The woman led them down a narrow street flanked by timeless brick buildings, their weathered exteriors contrasting starkly with the whirlwind of thoughts inside Sarah's mind. She wrestled with her instincts, questioning if inserting herself into Tom's past might not only disrupt the careful plans she had for her future but also fracture the fragile connection they had started to forge. A sudden nervousness gnawed at her as they reached a smaller, unassuming warehouse. The entrance, illuminated by a dull yellow light, revealed nothing of the turmoil that awaited them inside. The woman paused, a flicker of doubt flashing across her face. Sarah caught the look, a shared acknowledgement of the unknown looming before them. "Are you ready?" Tom asked, his voice steadier than she felt. It was as if he sensed the whirlwind of emotions swirling around them, ready to harness the storm or be swept away by it. "I have to be," the woman replied, her voice a mixture of resolve and apprehension. Sarah placed a hand on Tom's arm, her heart racing not in fear, but in a budding desire to stand firm beside him, to show him she was more than a fleeting presence in his life. "I'm here for you," she affirmed, her voice resonating with a commitment that felt surprising even to herself. Tom turned to her, surprise etched in his features. Gone was the wall he'd put up, curiosity now danced in his eyes. The moment sparked a crack in the armor of his uncertainty, if only for an instant, and she felt a surge of energy rush through her. With a deliberate push, the woman opened the door, revealing a dimly lit room filled with the stench of despair mixed with the remnants of moments past. Photographs cluttered the walls, capturing laughter frozen in time, moments of shared joy that felt distant yet powerful. Memories encased in the thin layer of dust told stories Sarah had only glimpsed from afar. As they stepped inside, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. Faces turned towards Tom, each one a reminder of who he had been, a stark contrast to the man who had been finding himself with Sarah. Silence enveloped them, punctuated by unspoken emotions swirling in the air. Tom's breath hitched slightly, grounded in hesitation as he surveyed the people before him. The tension warped time. It was as if each soul stood there not just in anticipation but also with the weight of his decisions pressing upon them. Would this confrontation pull him back into his old life, or would it illuminate a path towards growth and reconciliation? Sarah's stomach tightened. She was thrust into a realm of emotional stakes far beyond her understanding. Uncertainties collided with expectations. While she had pursued artistic endeavors, her own history of choices shadowed her like a specter. What if Tom folded under the weight of these expectations? The moment stretched, and she breathed in, resolving to step forward not just as an assistant in this emotional reckoning, but as a catalyst for growth. Before she could second-guess herself, she reached for Tom's hand. The warmth of her touch ignited something inside her, a spark of resilience. "This is your moment," she whispered, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. Would he rise to face the past, or would he be consumed by it? They're intertwined. Fates hung in the air, charged with potential as the silence thickened, ready to shatter in the face of confrontation. Would this moment escalate into unknown chaos, or could it weave them together through shared vulnerability? The door swung shut behind them, sealing their fates in that dimly lit space where stories awaited revitalization, the walls ready to witness transformation. The air shifted as the door closed, the dingy warehouse cocooning them in its layers of history and unspoken words. Sarah could feel the weight of the moment not just pressing down on her, but enveloping Tom like a heavy shroud. The eyes in the room were drawn to him, and she sensed the fragile thread of his resolve stretching thin. Yet in that pressure, something inside her ignited a blend of instinct and artful ambition. She realized she wasn't just there for Tom. This was her moment to assert herself in the world and to confront the boundaries she had set for her development as an artist. Behind her own trepidation was a flicker of awareness: she could help steer Tom through this. But how? She summoned a deep breath, pushing aside self-doubt in favor of actionable thoughts. Canvases didn't paint themselves, nor did relationships heal without engagement. "Tom," she began, her voice firm enough to cut through the murmur of uncertainty in the room. Her decision to speak, to claim space in this emotionally laden atmosphere, surprised even her. It was a risk, but she'd learned the power of articulation from her art. "You don't have to carry this burden alone." His gaze found hers, the depths of his emotions swirling in those familiar blue pools. A hint of gratitude softened his features, mingling with confusion. What was she saying? But this wasn't just about clarity for him, it was also about drawing her own line in the sand. Would she retreat into the shadows, the role of the passive supporter, or would she step into her own light? "I know it feels overwhelming," she continued, "but think of what you see here as part of your story. Each photo, each face holds a piece of who you used to be, but they don't define you now. You have the power to own your narrative." Her words felt like an invocation, stirring the air around them. With every conviction imbued in her voice, Sarah felt remnants of her own decisions rise hauntingly, yet she pressed on. She was no longer the artist struggling for inspiration, she was the woman prepared to wield the brush of transformation. "Together, we can create something new from it all here, right now." Tom's muscles visibly relaxed, the tension in his shoulders easing. She could see the shift in his posture. He was beginning to reclaim a sense of agency, wrestling against the tide of indecision. His focus moved from the glances around the room to the intimacy of their connection, and Sarah felt the rawness of that moment, like capturing a fleeting glimpse of truth through her lens. But with this breakthrough came the shadows of her past. Would she be able to fulfill her promise, standing alongside him while battling her own insecurities? The unfamiliar specter of her aspirations loomed. She had pursued art to escape her own unsatisfactory choices, but this was an opportunity for dual growth, the synergy of their healing. As voices began to rise in the background, laden with apprehension and mounting expectation, Sarah's heart raced again. The room was shifting, echoes of laughter and sorrow blending into something almost harmonious. This was a crossroads not just for Tom but for her too. Remember, just because you see certain faces doesn't mean you have to be that person anymore, she blurted, a startle sparking behind her fervor. You can be who you want to be, and I'm here to share that journey. His gaze ignited with an ember of realization. But just as hope flickered in the air, the atmosphere thickened with resistance. The barrier between past affections and future purpose loomed larger than ever. Tom's past was not so easily banished, and his struggle to reconcile those faces was far from over. Would he embrace this chance for renewal, or would the chains of former attachments bind him tighter? That question hung heavy as the first voice broke the silence, demanding to be heard, threatening the precious moment of revelation they had fought to unlock. With their fate entwined in the unfolding chaos, the atmosphere vibrated with unspoken possibilities, begging Sarah to confront her next move. Would her boldness resonate with Tom and become a source of empowerment, or would it collapse under the weight of the histories that clung to them both? The shadows lengthened as the room buzzed, and Sarah sensed a critical turning point was looming, ready to unravel. Tom's breath caught in his throat as the environment shifted under the weight of shared confessions. The tension in the room was almost palpable, the air a cocktail of past ghosts and brewing futures. Sarah could feel the urgency thrumming through her veins. This was not merely about Tom anymore, it was a defining moment for her, poised on the precipice of potential triumph or catastrophic failure. Tom, listen, she urged, her tone steadying as she focused on the clarity of his blue eyes. As she spoke, she felt the echoes of her own artistic doubts reverberate in her mind. Art was often a solitary endeavor. She had painted not just canvases but also the walls around her heart. Now, stepping into this shared emotional landscape felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Every image you've captured has a story, but that doesn't mean they dictate your future, she insisted, imbuing her voice with resolve. Each picture is a brushstroke in the larger canvas of who you are. Look at it the same way we'll look at this moment, it's a turning point. Tom's shoulders squared, the softness in his gaze hardening into grit. She watched as a flicker of recognition sparked within him, igniting a newfound strength. Yet Sarah was all too aware that her own transformation teetered on a similar brink. Could she truly enable change not only for Tom but also for herself? Her mind raced through her recent past, the evenings spent alone in her studio, grappling with her blank canvases, the creeping loneliness that had flourished in the absence of familial warmth or romantic companionship. Was her artistry merely an escape from the void, or was it a pathway to something more profound? This moment with Tom called for her to evaluate those layers of self-doubt she had so carefully constructed. Tom, we can take this moment to paint over the past, she continued, her voice a touch louder now, emboldened by both his progress and her reflection. We can find vibrancy from our struggles, the colors don't have to be muted. Let us turn the chaos into a colorful riot of growth. As her words hung in the air, she could feel the change rippling outward, impacting not just Tom but also the observers in the room. What was merely a backdrop to their private turmoil now turned into a live audience to their unfolding narrative. They were not just hearing, they were witnessing a transformation that had the potential to inspire. But the gravitational pull of Tom's past clung to him like shadows on a sunlit day. As if sensing her thoughts, his brows furrowed, an internal conflict bubbling just beneath the surface of his newfound courage. Sarah clasped her hands in front of her, suddenly keenly aware of the vulnerability laid bare between them. Her courage demanded reciprocity. Everything isn't erased by a moment of realization, but we can choose how we respond to it, she asserted, urging him to fully embrace the present. Use your narrative as an anchor, not a tether. As Tom's resolve solidified, she could feel her own confidence swell, a symbiotic growth that rallied against their respective histories. This gave Sarah the courage to step further into the spotlight she had cast on both herself and him. The atmosphere around them shifted as murmurs began to emerge within the crowd, changes rippling outward, each voice carrying tinges of doubt alongside burgeoning hope. It was a potent cocktail of feelings that only served to amplify her own. Would they see what she saw? The spark ignited not just between Tom and herself but radiating a collective potential that could summon the strength from everyone present. But just as the shift towards a renewal gained momentum, an unexpected force intruded on their moment. The door creaked ominously open again, and silence fell like a guillotine, severing the thread of hope they had woven. Sarah turned to see a familiar figure standing at the threshold, apprehension etched on her features. It was someone from her past, and in that moment, she understood that the stakes had risen dramatically. This was not just about Tom anymore, it was becoming a confrontation with her own unresolved history. How would she reconcile the remnants of her past while helping Tom seek his future? The weight of that question settled heavily on her conscience as the unsteady path ahead loomed larger, igniting a storm of possibilities. Would she allow the shadows of her past to drown them both, or would she rise in defiance, steering their journey toward a promised horizon? Tom's gaze flickered to the figure standing in the doorway, his resolve wavering as he recognized the shift in Sarah's demeanor. Sarah struggled to mask her own internal shock, the familiar face pulling her immediately back to a time she had fought hard to forget. The interruption sliced through the moment they had begun to carve, and the doubts she had once stifled began to swell again. As she wrestled to maintain her composure, she felt the electric connection with Tom snapping under the pressure of her past. The air thickened, bringing back a whirlwind of emotions she thought she had traversed. Could she truly stand strong for both herself and Tom in the face of this unexpected challenge? Sarah? The figure called softly, her voice a jarring reminder of their shared history. It's been a long time. The words hung between them like an anchor dragging her down. I didn't expect to see you here, Sarah managed through clenched teeth, her heart pounding. Each syllable uttered felt like a deliberate choice, a challenge to maintain her stance. She wasn't just here for herself anymore, Tom needed to see her stand resolute. Looks like you've moved on, the figure replied, a mixture of disappointment and curiosity in her eyes. Sarah could see the implications behind those words somehow, her past was creeping into her present, threatening the progress she was making alongside Tom. With all eyes turning toward her, Sarah's vulnerability was on full display. Tom's strength was waiting for her to lead, and yet part of her wanted to retreat into her history. Can't we have this conversation later? Sarah prompted, trying to shift the moment back into focus. She felt the pressure from the crowd mounting as if they were waiting for her to deliver the magic words that would change everything. But the longer she avoided her past, the louder it seemed to grow. Tom remained silent, the tension radiating from him like heat waves. Whatever strength he had just gathered seemed to waver as shadows of the past flitted around them. It was then that Sarah realized the importance of her next steps was twofold. Not only did she need to confront the woman at the door, but she had to simultaneously model the courage Tom needed to embrace. "Who's this?" Tom murmured, breaking the silence, his expression revealing a curiosity mingled with apprehension. It gave Sarah a moment of pause, making her aware of the stakes involved. "This is Lisa," she said, forcing a smile that was more armor than invitation. "We were close once." "Close?" Tom echoed, his brow furrowing slightly. "Yes," Sarah continued, plunging forward. "Long story short, she was a part of my life that I thought I had put behind me." The admission felt raw, yet strangely freeing. Lisa's lips tightened, the unvoiced judgment shimmering in her gaze. Sarah could sense the judgment permeating the air, but now wasn't the time for her to falter. If she were to guide both herself and Tom, she needed to rise above the fear. Tom, we've been talking about growth and change. This moment isn't to distract from that, Sarah stated, the determination thickening in her voice. It's about facing every part of ourselves, even the parts that make us uncomfortable. As the words left her mouth, she felt the weight of vulnerability transform into resilience. In doing this for Tom, she was also reclaiming her own narrative. Growth doesn't happen in isolation, it thrives in the crosswinds of our past and present, she asserted, feeling the oxygen shift with her newfound drive. Lisa's presence was a challenge, but it was also an opportunity. Tom's eyes searched hers, igniting a flickering hope. She took a step forward, ready to confront both her past and the potential of the future. Let us use this as an opportunity to show what we have learned rather than what we once were. The air in the room crackled with potential, and the murmur from the crowd seemed to evolve into a chorus of encouragement. But beneath the surface, doubt flickered like a bee in spring. Would she truly be able to emerge stronger, or would the weight of unresolved history pull her under? Just as she prepared to step into that confrontation fully, an unspoken question resounded in her mind: how much of her past emotions would truly shape her future? The answer remained shrouded in mystery as she braced herself for whatever lay ahead, ready to face Tom's past, her own, and the unpredictable dance between them. The silence in the room felt like a siren, echoing the uncertainty of the moment. As she faced Lisa, time seemed to stretch and contort, pulling Sarah deeper into what lay ahead. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to shield herself from the mixture of nostalgia and looming confrontation. But she felt the warmth of Tom's gaze steady her. She couldn't run away now, she had come too far for that. "Can we talk?" Lisa finally asked, breaking the silence, her tone more earnest than Sarah remembered. It was an invitation layered with unfinished conversations, old wounds, and perhaps the hope for resolution. Sarah hesitated, hands clenched at her sides, the heat of unfinished business twisted inside her. "There's a part of me that wants to say yes," she thought, "yet another urges me to walk away." Taking a deep breath, Sarah found her voice. "I think it's time," she declared firmly, surprising even herself. "Not just for you and me, but for the person I've become." Tom's eyes brightened, signaling that he was ready to stand by her, to explore this labyrinth of her past together. The resolve pulsed through her veins, illuminating the corners of her uncertainty. She stepped toward Lisa, her heart racing but grounded by the underlying truth she had just vocalized, recognizing her growth meant embracing every part of her story. A murmur of electricity passed through the room as they settled into a makeshift stance, ready for what revealed itself next. "Sarah, I've thought about you a lot," Lisa began, her voice trembling slightly. "About what we shared, and how abruptly I left." Sarah's expression hardened, the pain of their shared history bubbled just beneath the surface. "It wasn't just you leaving," she interjected. "It was everything that led up to it. We made choices that hurt each other without realizing the consequences." Lisa nodded slowly, understanding now dawning in her eyes. "I see that now. I was so caught up in my own fear that I overlooked your feelings. I fled instead of facing the reality of us." Facing the reality. The very words that echoed in Sarah's mind, and in that moment, she realized this was the crux of her journey. It wasn't just about overcoming her past, but understanding it, allowing the pain to reshape her into someone new. "Even now, I feel fear," Sarah admitted, her voice steadying with each confession. "But I've learned that moving forward means facing the things that terrify me. You're a part of that." The moment hung delicately, and for the first time, Sarah felt a rush of clarity. Opening the door to her past could unlock the chains that held her back. It was not simply about healing for herself but also showing Tom the true nature of resilience, how interconnected their journeys of healing had become. Lisa met her gaze, an unspoken understanding blooming between them. What if we set aside the weight of the past? Just for now. Let this moment guide us to some form of resolution. Sarah considered it, and something inside her shifted. Yes, she affirmed, a weight lifting from her chest. Let us talk, and not just about what happened, but about how it became our identities. It's time to shed those skins. As they took their first steps into open dialogue, Sarah sensed a softening within herself. This encounter, this reunion, could be the catalyst for her development, not merely as a means of setting her past free, but as a way to embrace her future. The shadows of doubt that should have held her back were instead creating a mosaic of possibilities. Tom's presence at her side was a quiet promise, a reminder that her journey was not solitary but interwoven with another's. She pierced through Lisa's gaze, filled with a mixture of apprehension and hope, igniting a dialogue she desperately sought in her life. But as the conversation deepened, balancing confession and vulnerability, a realization struck her, a stark truth that still shadowed their discourse. Words left unsaid, secrets buried deep, could yet twist into patterns of mistrust or ignominy if not handled with care. What else might come to light? What other pieces of the past were waiting, threatening to emerge and create new ripples in her life? With uncertainty mixing with readiness, she could feel the ground beneath her tremble as the conversation unfolded. The real question loomed larger than the last: would they be able to confront everything together, or would the shadows of their choices become unbearable? And as they sat on the precipice of self-revelation, Sarah knew one thing: the answers held promises of newfound strength or the risk of unraveling. What lay ahead was undetermined, but she was ready to confront it with both Tom and Lisa by her side. Lisa took a breath, the gravity of the moment pressing heavily on her shoulders. I've been thinking about how much I've changed, too. Leaving was my choice, but staying away all these years felt like a prison. Sarah sensed Lisa's struggle, the weight of regret shifting the air between them. For years, she had replayed that day, the last conversation burned into her memory, a backdrop to her every decision. But realizing they were both standing on the other side of those memories made a stark difference. I understand that now, Sarah stated, her voice steady. But understanding doesn't erase the scars. We can't just ignore what happened. Tom shifted beside her, his body slightly angled toward Sarah, silently affirming her resolve. She felt empowered, the self-pity she might have harbored gradually falling away. This was a pivotal point. Maybe we can find a way to acknowledge those scars without letting them dictate our present, Lisa suggested tentatively, her eyes flitting between Sarah and Tom. What do you mean? Sarah probed, curiosity peaking amidst the tension. We can create space where we are honest but also give ourselves permission to grow beyond our pasts, Lisa explained, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke. I didn't come here to reopen wounds, but to explore the possibility of healing. Wouldn't it be more meaningful to let our choices become lessons instead of burdens? Sarah considered Lisa's words, the resonance they bore. It was a path not devoid of risks but one where they could redefine their narratives together. The idea of transforming their pain into strength excited her, igniting her determination. I agree, she replied, the corners of her mouth curling into a slight smile. Learning from our mistakes instead of living in them sounds like a good place to start. Tom nodded, his expression reflecting both pride and support. But then, deep within her, a doubt flickered as she recalled the darker corners of their shared history. Were they strong enough to confront the truth? The memories flickered like an old film reel, the arguments, the fears, the unspoken resentment. What if we open that door and find that the past was even more tangled than we anticipated? We address it together, Lisa assured, her gaze unwavering. I'm willing to face it all, as long as it's with honesty. I would rather grapple with what we did than hide from it. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, Sarah felt a wave of understanding wash over them both. It was a confirmation, no more evasion. With a measure of reluctance, Sarah felt herself relenting, gritting her teeth against the tide of buried emotions. What do you remember most about our last moments together? She asked, her heart racing at the thought. Lisa hesitated, caught in reverie. I remember feeling like a coward. I thought that leaving would protect us both from pain, but instead, I secured it. Then maybe it's time to welcome the discomfort, Sarah declared, emboldened by the realization that addressing the past could illuminate pathways forward. They exchanged glances that carried the weight of years untold, a shared acknowledgement that their way ahead held a fragile but bright hope. Yet, just as a glimmer of resolution began to form, the room's atmosphere shifted. Sarah sensed the heaviness creeping back. Her mind raced at the prospect of further revelations, flickers of long-buried confrontations clawing at the edges of her thoughts. What if we discover things we wish we hadn't? She challenged, her voice wavering slightly. Would they truly be ready to confront the buried demons lurking in the shadows of their past? Lisa took a deep breath, anchoring her resolve. We owe it to ourselves to find out. If we're going to heal, we must dig through the wreckage and come out whole on the other side. Sarah's heart quickened, not only from fear but from an awakening sense of determination. As Lisa's words emboldened her, she felt the spark of something new unfurling within. A decision was looming, one drenched in uncertainty but beckoning her. Would she have the courage to confront what lay ahead, to face not just Lisa but the soul of her own growth? In that moment, poised on the brink of exploration, she asked herself, could this be the key to not only her dialogue with Lisa but to the rediscovery of herself? As the weight of the question settled in her chest, she realized it was time to loosen the grip of what had held her back for too long. And in that very instant, as their conversation hung delicately in the air, Sarah felt the anchor of her past shift ever so slightly, revealing a profound truth hidden within the chaos. But would the unfolding truths bring clarity or merely entangle them deeper in their past mistakes? Only time could unveil the deeper layers of meaning awaiting them. As the silence stretched taut in the dimly lit warehouse, Sarah paused, letting the gravity of their situation sink in. Her heart raced against the suffocating weight of uncertainty, but in that moment, she felt a fierce determination rising within her. True transformation would emerge from confronting the very fears that had haunted her for years. With newfound resolve, she turned to Lisa. You're right, it's time to challenge our past. But let us do it not just for ourselves, but for the future we wish to create. Tom shifted beside her, his presence a steady anchor, bolstering her with silent support. Together, he whispered, his voice a steady affirmation of their shared moment. Feeling the warmth of his encouragement, Sarah continued, facing our scars can lead to understanding, not just for each of us individually, but for the connections we can build moving forward. The words flowed from her, powered by an urgency to not just mend fences, but to foster a sense of freedom in vulnerability. With Lisa nodding thoughtfully, Sarah's confidence swelled. For me, the path has been about reclaiming my narrative. I want you both to know that no matter how lost I felt, I learned to infuse my art with my experiences. Every stroke is a testament to resilience. Lisa's eyes glimmered with admiration, and as Sarah continued speaking, she felt a layer of fear peel back. This is about more than just art, it's about life and the choices we make. We've all been complicit in our past mistakes, but recognizing our faults sets the stage for a brighter future. Just as the air hummed with the collective weight of their past, a spark ignited, entwining them in committed honesty. Lisa took a step forward. What if I told you I've been paralyzed by guilt? I faced your absence daily, and it nearly broke me. Sarah swallowed hard, allowing the moment to sink in. That pain is valid, Lisa. But holding on to that guilt keeps us bound to our past rather than equipped for the future. If we can unearth those feelings, every jagged edge, we can mold them into a platform upon which to build anew. Tom interjected, we hang on to our fears out of habit. When we commit to reshaping our stories, we can transform that fear into creative expression. Each of us has the potential to shift from being victims of circumstance to architects of our own lives. A silence enveloped them, charged with the energy of possibility. Sarah envisioned a vivid tapestry where the threads of their intertwined stories could be unraveled and woven back together, stronger than before. Lisa nodded begrudgingly, her eyes reflecting a flicker of hope. "What you've said resonates deeply, Sarah. I want to redefine our narrative, not merely recite what has been." At that instant, Sarah sensed her dream of artistic expression becoming interwoven with her reality. The flicker within her ignited vividly, illuminating her path forward. They needed not remain defined by fractured relationships, but rather could emerge resolutely together, ready to face the future with courage. "Let us form a collective," Sarah suggested, boldness surging through her. "A coalition of honesty out of our shared pasts, channeling our experiences into a collaborative art project that embodies growth and redemption. Each piece can reflect our journey, our learning." As those words fell into place, the room pulsed with enthusiasm. Lisa's face broke into a smile as the realization dawned upon her. Yes. Art as a vehicle for healing, a powerful way to show the communities we've affected that we are truly seeking change. Tom's eyes sparkled with excitement, appreciation evident in his expression. By showcasing our transformations, we can inspire others. Our journey could become a movement for everyone who feels lost or entangled in their own past. The momentum built around them, each word exchanged reinforcing their collective determination. Sarah's heart swelled as she felt validated and seen not just as a graphic designer seeking recognition but as a storyteller ready to reclaim her narrative through collaboration and shared vulnerability. Outside of that dim warehouse, the chaos of the autumn day fell to silence, that tranquility pierced through the backdrop of the life they were ready to redefine. In that pivotal moment, as they stepped outside into the cool air, Sarah breathed in the crispness of possibility. She had faced her past, rekindled connections, and unearthed a vision. Her sense of purpose surged forward like the vibrant palette of colors she would soon paint. Together, they stood at the cusp of transformation, not merely as individuals but as a united front, ready to embrace what lay ahead. The shadows of doubt would no longer bind her, the artistry waiting to be created would become a beacon of hope not only for themselves but for the communities craving change. That day marked the crystallization of promise, and Sarah smiled gently at Tom and Lisa, her heart full with the infectious energy of their journey rewriting each narrative. They had conquered their demons together, and in doing so, had situated themselves as architects of their own futures. As they walked forward, each step resonated with newfound confidence. They were no longer beholden to the past but were transformed by it, an authentic testament to resilience and the power of collaboration. This was the beginning of something extraordinary, a journey etched in art and connection, full of potential, their story newly unwrapped, fierce with ambition and coherence, ready to inspire. Now, are you ready to embrace your own narrative? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you to create and conquer your path. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every heart counts towards building a community of transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion, as we'd love to hear your insights. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this journey of personal overcoming. Let's inspire growth together.